Tonight on Motorway Cops.
Open the door!
Stopping the car thieves.
Hey. That was silly!
Hunting down illegal drivers.
Not allowed to drive, are you?
As the cops battle the traffic. And roadside chaos.
Oh, come on. How many more blue lights do you want?
In a race to help those in danger.
We've got a person trapped in a car. Just had to report it on fire.
Britain's motorways are at saturation point. Every day, up to 200,000 cars, lorries and vans use the 2,000 miles of the motorway network.
The motorways are virtually a bursting point now. I don't know what they're going to be like in 5 years' time. They're absolutely chock-a-block.
The tailbacks put pressure on motorists, and even more pressure on the specialist cops on patrol 24 hours a day.
It is very frustrating. The roads are more congested now. It isn't as quick to travel up the motorways. Even if we've got blue lights on and we're on our way to emergency.
Move! Sharon Smith and Mick Goodrich of the Central Motorway Police Group are just north of Stoke in Staffordshire.
We're going to report of a stolen vehicle that's travelling on the M6.
The call for help is from another motorway cop.
Our sergeant, who was single crewed, started to follow it. We were the nearest vehicle to him, although we had some distance to travel.
So I've had an update now that it's centre lane, 80 miles an hour. It's a plain car that's behind it, so they're still not aware that we know that it's stolen.
The unmarked police car behind the stolen car can't stop the thieves until help arrives. Smith and Goodrich are the nearest motorway cops, but they're still 6 miles away.
And the problem is that if a vehicle is doing 70 miles an hour on the motorway, you've got to do speeds over 100 miles an hour in order to catch it up.
And traffic ahead is slowing their progress.
And then you get people like this pulling out in front of you without looking in the mirror, without indicating.
The cops are forced to take a faster route.
No receiver, we're having to use the hard shoulder due to the amount of traffic.
But this route has other dangers. Objects in the road ahead.
That would have hurt.
I won't go any faster than this because I've had an accident on the hard shoulder before, so...
But the shortcut has paid off. The stolen car and the unmarked police car following it are now just ahead. The cops now have a decision to make, to try to stop the car now, or wait for more help to arrive.
In an ideal situation, we'd like at least 3, maybe 4 vehicles really to stop a stolen vehicle. But on this occasion, there was only the 2 vehicles, and you just have to make the best of it, really.
The plan is to use the 2 police cars to force the stolen car out of the traffic and safely onto the hard shoulder.
We took the front of the vehicle to indicate that we needed to stop him, and the sergeant took the rear of the vehicle.
As the car slows, it's clear their plan hasn't completely worked out. The thief is stopping in lane 1, a very dangerous place.
Stopped in the carriageway.
Now the cops must act quickly to get him off the motorway.
Open the door! Open the door!
Get out!
Force must now be used.
On the floor, hands behind your back.
It probably was a bit scary for the driver, but that's the whole intention.
That was silly!
It just gives us those precious few seconds in order to get him out and get the ignition turned off.
Okay, you're under arrest on suspicion of theft of a motor vehicle. You don't have to say anything, it may harm your defence if you do not make...
What we'll do is sit you up and we'll clear the glass, OK? Right, carefully. OK, do as you're told.
Move around here.
To no harm. Bend your legs
Bend your legs up.
So you can sit up.
932 in custody, lane 1 blocked at this present time. We've got success, we've got two in custody, we've got a car.
Once you've got them, you know, you've got someone's vehicle back, someone's pride and joy, you've also got some people that are responsible for it, because sometimes you don't get that. You'll get an abandoned stolen vehicle with no offenders, so it's quite an achievement, really.
But the motorway cops can't celebrate for long.
Just move it on the hard shoulder, let's clear the carriageway.
The blocked lane has created a 2-mile tailback, causing danger for other drivers.
Once you start stopping in lane 1, people start looking at what we're doing, and they're stopping and not looking what they're doing. Then next thing is someone bumps into the back of somebody else, and then you have an accident on your hands as well.
"30 miles north on the M56, PC's Carl Lloyd and Paul Cuddy are also having problems with the traffic.
Come on, how many more blue lights do you want?
The emergency they're on their way to is a serious one.
We've got a person trapped in a car. Just said report it's on fire.
A fire is the call the motorway cops fear the most.
If you believe something's on fire, you do fear the worst, because you might think that somebody's trapped.
A break in the traffic allows the motorway cops to put their foot down.
We'll be doing 80, 90, 100, 110 maybe. And using all the blue lights and all the emergency equipment to clear the path in front of us.
The latest information about the accident is still unclear.
We've got now contradictory reports. There's one that says there's no injuries, one that says the vehicle's still on fire, and one that says that there's one vehicle in lane 2 and one on the hard shoulder. So we'll just have to see what we're like.
Here's the build-up now.
Yeah, just for your information, BA, the build-up of traffic is just at the end of the slip road from the exit slip from the M6 North. We're taking to the shoulder.
The tailback, over a 5-minute period, you can be looking at least a mile and a half of traffic.
Getting through the traffic safely calls for teamwork and a keen pair of eyes.
I would go in front of this truck and in between him and the caravan. Go in front. There we go.
How's that? It's clear, you're all right.
The accident is just ahead.
Okay.
No, hang on, we're gonna get behind this.
One of the cars involved has spun onto the hard shoulder. The other car has hit the crash barrier. The good news is there's no fire.
That's not going to go, is it?
I've got a Rangy.
The first thought is that when you pull up behind that car that's in lane 3, you want to make sure that there's nobody inside it and trapped.
The vehicles were badly damaged as a result of the collision and hitting the barriers.
Amazingly, the drivers have walked away unhurt.
Are you all right yourself? Okay, we'll get you checked over by the ambulance. All right, mate.
The 2 drivers of those vehicles had a very, very lucky escape. If it wasn't for the people behind them in the other vehicles who'd been able to react to what they've seen in the carriageway, things could have been a lot worse.
The problem the motorway cops have now is moving the damaged car safely across the busy motorway.
Yeah, we won't move it with an X5 if there's no wheels on it.
The danger is that there's going to be an accident at the end of the tailback. Therefore, our main priority is to get the road clear so that we reduce the risk of another collision occurring.
But the cops and the traffic must wait. But 100 miles east in Humberside, motorway cops Steve Keeble and Joe Clark have very different problems.
There it is, look, you can see the smoke.
A fire on the motorway, and this time it's not a false alarm.
We've got a lorry on fire, junction 2 eastbound, which is the other carriageway, and the smoke's going across 2 other lanes now.
The smoke from the fire is causing chaos.
As I was approaching the scene, I could see that the vehicle was well alight and there was a lot of smoke coming off it. So at that point, the wind was going south, which was coming back across the carriageway I was travelling on.
It's so bad that they are preparing to close the carriageway.
We're waiting update from fire brigade. They've stopped the traffic in the outside lanes. We now have standing traffic on the whole of the eastbound, but the hard shoulder is clear.
got a full motorway closure now. We're going to come past a full lane closure on this side very shortly, with fire brigades and everything all across the carriageway.
Shutting down the motorway is the last thing the cops want to see. But the danger is so great, there is little choice.
You know, if a vehicle's on fire, you've still got an explosive chance from things like the petrol tank, if it's carrying gas containers or anything, if it's dual fuel.
The hold-up is already causing a tailback. PC Keeble will have to fight his way through it.
It meant me going up to Junction 1, which was like another 8 mile away. We turned round and I was actually on the eastbound carriageway. Obviously there was a lot of traffic building up and I was coming down lane 3 and my only option would be to go down the hard shoulder.
Just 5 minutes has passed since the motorway was closed, but the traffic now stretches for miles.
Very quickly we'll have 3 lanes of standing traffic backing up for 2 or 3 miles if we've done a full motorway closure. As I approached the scene, I could see the police van. I recognised them as Scunthorpe officers, so I asked them if they could give me a quick update.
You've got a driver in our van.
Yeah.
What he said is loss of power, pull on the hard shoulder. This is an eruption in flame.
The driver will be quizzed by PC Keeble.
Jumping back seat to my car there then. The driver was pointed out to me and he was obviously shook up and quite distressed, and I think he'd started to dwell on what could have happened.
But the fire brigade also need a word with him about the amount of fuel still on board.
Good driver, fella?
Yeah, mate, yes.
How much fuel did you have in?
There's about 900 litres.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Okay.
When there's a vehicle on fire or hazardous chemicals involved, then the fire brigade are in charge of that scene.
There's about 900 litres of fuel in, so... Is there?
We'll stay back then?
Yeah.
OK. It's gone up in flames. It's carrying about 800 to 900 litres of fuel, so the brigade's asked us to stay back. Fire and hazardous chemicals is their specialism. Ours is to keep traffic flowing, so we let them do their job and leave them to it because they're the experts.
The fuel left in the tanks is now leaking onto the carriageway.
If there's been such things as diesel spillage, oil spillage, the road stays closed until that spillage is wiped up. Diesel on a road, it turns it into an ice rink. Obviously you've got things like motorcyclists or other cars, you don't want them going onto diesel or oil, which is just going to cause another accident.
Only one lane of the carriageway is open, not enough to clear the tailback.
You're aware that that's the main road and it does carry a lot of traffic, and even a slight delay, you'll know for a fact that traffic is building up right down the carriageway.
Back on the M56 in Cheshire, traffic is also building up, but they now have a car which can tow the debris from the fast lane.
The highways agency are here and they're going to endeavour to tow this vehicle.
While they move it, the traffic will have to come to a halt once again. With the car safely on the hard shoulder, PC Lloyd can check up on the condition of the drivers.
Is your neck sore or anything?
I think I might have banged my head on the window.
All right. Here's the fast response ambulance coming just to check you over. I mean, the car's a bit of metal. You're all right, that's the main thing, yeah? If you start feeling faint, just sit there because you're looking a bit pale at the minute. All right.
With the backlog of traffic clearing, the cops can finally start the investigation into what happened.
You try and find out what's caused the collision, and if there is any blame to be apportioned, it can be done at a later date.
The outside lane, the new one, and the car must have been going from it inside the.
Having spoke to everyone at the scene, it appears that it was just a momentary lapse of concentration on both of their parts. One moved out, one moved in. It's only a glancing blow, but it's obvious that both have been in the other's blind spot.
This lady's hit the barrier, as you can see from the damage to the car, and the other chap's had a slight impact with this lady and spun off onto the hard shoulder.
Are you the owner of the car?
It could have been a lot worse. We could have been looking at fatalities because of the dynamics of the collision more than anything else. Fortunately for everybody involved, there was no trucks nearby. A heavy goods vehicle will go through a car, and the result is carnage.
We've got all the details of the witnesses. We'll put an accident form file together, and we'll go from there. Fortunately, there's no injuries, which is a bonus, really.
At the scene of the lorry fire, 2 lanes of the carriageway are still closed. But the tailback is now easing off.
It's about 2 mile back now.
Yeah, as long as we can keep that third lane going.
The fire brigade are still trying to stem the flood of diesel fuel onto the tarmac.
It's still seeping away, so what they're doing now is they're looking at trying to stop it, sandbag it up, prevent any more diesel getting into the watercourses.
But it's the damage caused by the fire that concerns PC Keeble.
Usually when there's a vehicle fire or an engine fire or something on the carriageway, you'll see underneath the damage that it causes to the road surface. We need to do some road repairs, but Carillion are here anyway. Because we've got the damage to the carriageway, the fire has burnt all the top surface. It's also encroached slightly onto lane 1, so we're going to have to put a full lane 1 closure on. That'll give the highways agencies a chance to repair the vehicle. It'll also give us a safe working area to get the vehicle recovered by one of the agents.
But they think they have solved the mystery of what caused the fire.
The driver said that he was coming down the road, his cruise control dropped off, and then smoke started coming and fire out of his bonnet, and he seems to think he's had a diesel pipe rupture, which has caused it to go up.
That'll get some scraping off that, I know, because it'll melt itself into the...
Oh yeah, I know.
With the lorry on its way, the full extent of the damage to the road surface is revealed.
The whole of the tarmac top had been melted away, and then because of the heat it had burnt away as well. So once we've got the lorry recovered, then that in itself is a hazard.
Major repairs are needed.
They're just checking it, and then you're going to put a full lane 1 closure on and sort this diesel out. Thanks.
A team of engineers will be on the job all night.
The highways agency are now going to go clean all the debris up, and also the diesel that's in that gully there that's dammed off at both ends. We're going to resume 3 hours later, and we're all on our way.
Nighttime brings new challenges. Darkness and monotony add to the danger. And keeping the roads safe becomes an even bigger problem for the motorway cops.
When it's dark, excess speed coupled with fatigue can be quite a dangerous combination.
You're driving along and it's nice and dark, you're just concentrating on the field in front of you, you've got your radio on, the heaters on or something like that. If there's no other vehicles in front, they're just driving within the light pattern driven out by their own vehicle, and that's as far as they can see. The first thing you're going to see is when it goes wrong, and normally that's too late.
It's 9 p.m. Near Hull, PC's Gary Dickinson and Sergeant Martin Moore are responding to reports of another crash in the fast lane. The accident happened just 40 minutes ago, and the Highways Agency have already coned off the area to keep other motorists safe. But the driver has done a runner, leaving the cops to work out just what happened.
Oh, that's where it's come in then.
Could just be
ricochet up. My job as a motorway cop on the motorway is that should a collision take place such as this one, the basic investigation begins with myself. See from the skid marks, they're coming in from lane 3, so the chances are he's lost control further up and hit the concrete barrier of the central reservation. And then it looks like he's come across broadside along here, following the skid marks through. Come along here, and taken out the barrier.
All the signs are that it's a high-speed crash.
Scary, very scary. It's basically spun and had a few very good serious bangs as it's gone spinning along its way along the carriageway, and then hit the Armcore barrier and then pirouetted back round, lane to, and it spun back and come to rest on the hard shoulder further up. Oops. You picked a fine time to leave me. Come on. Excellent. It's a kind of an old phrase, an old song. You picked a fine time to leave me loose wheel when I turned up at the Rover and there's a wheel hanging off. It is light-hearted at the time, but it's also got fatal consequences as well in some circumstances. Good job it was the time of day it was. One of these bouncing around is enough to kill anybody, go through their windscreen. Had a case of a trailer losing a tyre last year, bounced into opposite the carriageway, struck a vehicle. Unfortunately killed the lady that was driving it, totally innocent, in the opposite direction. So, yeah. There you got 50, 60 pounds worth of metal there. It's enough to kill anybody. It could have easily been a fatality. It's fortunate that there's no other motor traffic on the road at the time. I have seen instances where other vehicles have been involved and they've been taken out by a car doing such a thing. The last thing you expect you're driving along normally is to see a car spinning in your direction from either your offside or your near side. So yeah, it is quite rare, but when it does happen, it can be quite spectacular. Big car saved his life.
But the driver's whereabouts remains a mystery.
In the majority of cases, when someone's done a runner from a car such as this one, it's because they're either drunk, or they're on drugs, or they're wanted.
10 miles north of Birmingham, PC's Jan McNamara and Gary Williams are taking advantage of the dark roads.
I love working at night. One of the biggest pluses is that you can actually sneak up on people when they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Just ahead, they've spotted a car and its passengers taking a break on the hard shoulder.
Where are we? Initially, it looked like the chap that was outside the car was actually relieving himself at the roadside. Decent exposure, which we both take exception to. It's not a public toilet.
I think he still is.
Yeah, mate.
He's still there, isn't he?
To stop on the hard shoulder purely and simply for a call of nature is illegal.
I want to know why has he stopped here and now?
What I wanted to do initially was to find out what they thought that they were actually playing at. If it turned out it was for the urination, then I was going to issue them with a ticket.
Toilets!
The first thing that I needed to do was identify who the driver was.
You're driving, are you?
Yeah.
Got your driving licence with you, please?
Sorry?
Driving licence?
It was quite obvious that there was going to be a language barrier.
Your driver car.
Where are the keys? Keys for the car.
We contacted an organisation called Language Line, which we do use quite a lot, as the people that we deal with are quite often from foreign countries.
So the guy who's sitting in the back produced a licence from China.
But there's a problem.
That says category C, yeah? Vehicles over 7.7 pounds. But it doesn't say passenger cars.
Because it's an international driving permit rather than his actual Chinese licence, he's actually not allowed to drive. He has to produce his licence as well to drive on the road over here, so he's technically driving with no licence.
Now the cops have discovered a new problem. The man is claiming it wasn't him driving.
Yeah.
It was his mate.
Apparently he's not the driver. Right.
Not allowed to drive, are you?
PC Williams is now checking out the other man and his licence.
Right, he's just given me a Chinese international driving licence. All right, can you ask him how long he's been in the UK and what he's actually doing in the UK?
They told us that the driver had been in the country for 4 years.
Unfortunately, because he's a non-EU licence holder, he's been here for 4 years, so this does not count. Can you tell this Chinese lad that we've got here, his licence is only valid for the first 12 months, OK?
He then started to change his story on how long he'd actually been here.
He's what? He's just told me he's been here for 4 years. Yeah.
Lying now.
Yeah.
Their stories just don't add up.
Well, it is rethought his length of stay in the UK, and apparently he's only been here for under a year now. So amazing.
Certainly, I'm starting to think that maybe there may be a little bit more to this than meets the eye.
I'm not going to give this chap the benefit of the doubt. We are going to have his car off him. Plus, we're also going to do an immigration check, just to find out exactly what his status is. Thanks. Hello.
PC Williams is going to take them in for questioning.
Can you tell him that he's going to be reported for the offences of stopping on the hard shoulder and urinating on my bank? All right. Also, he's driving his car without a valid driving licence.
Back at the scene of the car crash, PC Gary Dickinson is still trying to work out the whereabouts of the missing driver.
We had suspicion to believe the driver had been drinking before we even attended at the scene, so it was just a case of finding out what happened and what he's done subsequently.
And his hunch has been backed up by a witness.
The truck driver says, "You're going to have to stay because the police are coming." He says, "I'm not going to stay here because I've had a drink. I'll ring up and say it's stolen."
The driver even had time to lock his car before he fled the scene.
The vehicle was totally secure, it was locked up, there was no keys in the ignition, there was no damage to the ignition, so we know the car's not stolen unless it's been subject to a house burglary. They're a bit daft when they get drunk. I'll go to the pub, I'll have a few sniffs, then I'll ring up and say it was stolen. Taking keys with them. What is the possibility of someone getting in that car and stealing it if it's got a wheel hanging off and it's not drivable? Nil.
The chances he's out there having a little look at us.
Well, as I say, it's been an hour and 20. He's got sufficient.
The cops have identified the owner of the car. He's not at home, but PC Moore has managed to speak to his wife.
Obviously, we've tried to convince her that we need to make sure that he's safe and sound, basically, first and foremost. The only concerns he could actually stagger back onto the motorway, we've got to rule that out. And we've asked to get back in touch with him, because clearly there's some contact with mobile phone with him, to say if he doesn't come to our attention fairly soon, of his own volition, if you like, it's just going to get worse and worse for him. Certainly, he's going to end up having a chat with the magistrates on this. They're not going to be overly impressed. The resources that we're having to throw in this and the time.
You've got 3 patrols, sergeant. We've now got a dog unit arrived to check to see if he's not injured and laid in the ditch. We could be doing much better things than having 2 lanes of a motorway closed, searching around for someone that's decided to drink and drive. They deserve the book thrown at them. They deserve everything they get. We want to see justice done when it deserves to be done. And for a case where you know that someone's been drink driving and they've done a runner, it does frustrate you because they need to be brought to justice before they go out and do it again, thinking they've got away with it once, they can do it again, but the next time they're going to kill somebody.
120 miles away, at Bloxwich police station near Birmingham, the 2 men suspected of driving with dodgy licences are being booked in by PCs McNamara and Williams. The cops are using a system called LiveScan, which compares their prints against the police database to check their true identities.
It's almost instant. They take the fingerprints, they're sent away, and then while you're dealing with the person, the results come back. You can't deny your own fingerprints. They're identified there and then.
They have an answer.
Yay!
Bingo!
He's got the same top on. Fabulous.
One of the men has been lying about who he is.
The result came back that one of them had actually given us false details, false name, false date of birth. and it transpired that he was actually already known to the police. His fingerprints came back via the Criminal Records Office rather than the Immigration Office.
Just had a result on the first chap we gave you. He's got a CRO number and what have you under a totally different name. And that's for, I'm led to believe, being involved in the cultivation of cannabis.
Up until that point, they've got the upper hand because you don't know who they are. Therefore, they're sitting there knowing that you don't know truly who they are. Whereas as soon as their fingerprints come back, we then know who they are and what they've done in the past.
The driving offences are the least of their worries. They are being detained as illegal immigrants. Both men will be held in custody and interviewed later by the immigration authorities.
We're absolutely ecstatic about it.
That's what
That's a good result. That makes you feel really good, that does. That makes you think, yes. Yes.
Early morning on the motorway network brings motorists back on the roads again. But the motorway cops are also back out in force. They know that mixing heavy lorries with rush hour commuters can cause problems. Especially when some people are a little too keen to get to work. PC Sharon Smith and Mick Goodrich are tailing a speeder in the fast lane.
We were in a plain vehicle and the car came flying past us and we were doing the limit, so that would suggest that they're doing fast, so we followed them for approximately half a mile.
But as you can see from the speedo, this gent's doing just over 100 miles per hour.
Motorways are very dangerous places and I don't think the public completely appreciate that. Speed can kill. It only takes a certain lapse of concentration and you could be onto the rumble strip if you're out in lane 3 and then your wheels are in the hardcore and next thing is, you know, you've hit something, you've lost control, you're spinning, you could hit somebody else.
As the driver pulls up, PC Smith notices another problem.
I was quite surprised to find that there was a young child in the back which wasn't restrained in any way, shape or form.
But the driver has got his excuse for the speeding charge ready. He's a doctor.
Okay. Where's your green light then?
Sorry?
Where's your green light?
I haven't got a green, I'm actually on call.
You get lots of excuses from people why they are exceeding the speed limit. I mean, normally people are just late.
Because I'm a non-resident on call and I'm supposed to be there at 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Is it an emergency you're going to then, is it? What's the emergency?
I've got to assess a patient.
You've got to assess a patient? Yeah. Well, I don't consider that to be an emergency for you to be at 100 miles an hour, Doctor, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but that's...
Have you got your driving licence on you?
I haven't actually.
I also noticed that his wife and child were in the vehicle in the back, and the child, which I think was about 3 or 4 year old, was stood on the back seat.
Don't you consider that a bit dangerous, that your child's not in a car seat, you're doing 100 miles an hour, and your child stood up on the back seat?
He has an excuse for that as well. It was his wife's fault.
Yeah, I was telling my wife to put her in the car seat, yeah, sorry about that. I was supposed to be getting to work and really, I'm getting a bit stressed. I wouldn't do that again, I know.
Yeah, OK, come and jump in the back of the car a minute, then I'll explain what we're going to do.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing that, well, firstly, that people can still have unrestrained children in the vehicle, but secondly, to be doing that at 101 miles an hour is absolutely disgusting.
Well, the way I intend to deal with this is you're doing 101 miles an hour. Is I'm going to have to report you for the offence, so you will have the facility to go to court to explain to the magistrates why you're doing this sort of speed.
I lose my licence?
Magistrates have to consider disqualification of any speeds over 100 miles per hour, yeah. So
now the speeding driver tries to pull a fast one.
Can't you just say it's under 100?
We're not allowed to do that, are we, really?
To pull a fast one and ask for you to lower the speed limit, it's a bit out of order, really, because that wasn't the speed he was doing. He was doing 101 mile an hour. We're not there to barter.
And you must put your child in a car seat, Doctor. That is so dangerous doing that.
Yeah, she was in the seat and she was a bit sick. I know she took her out and then was going to put her back in.
Doing those speeds and a child out of the car, if you were to have a crash. I've got 2 young children myself, and they don't go anywhere without the belts on. If he'd have had an accident at that sort of speed, the child would have been thrown all around the vehicle and possibly out of a window.
So if I get going, because I'm...
I won't keep you long now.
Is it a court case?
I've no doubt that it will go to court. I see no reason why you doing 101 miles an hour on the motorway will not go to court. OK, so just be guided by the summons that you receive through the post. All right, and please slow down, and please put your daughter in a car seat. Speed is a killer on the motorway. You know, 30 miles an hour over the speed limit gives you a lot less time to react. The main problem is that with speeds and the amount of traffic on there, that when something goes wrong, it can go seriously wrong.
That's disgraceful about the child, that is. I'd have reported him for that as well, I was.
He's not going to get any more, though, is he?
No, he isn't.
It's not only speeding motorists who put other road users at risk. Last year, in England and Wales, uninsured drivers caused more than 130 deaths. Now the motorway cops are cracking down on those who drive without insurance. Specialist in-car equipment can read every car number plate and check it against a database to find the offenders. PC's, Williams and McNamara are using it to scan the cars ahead.
Insurance.
Mike Alpha Oscar Tango 33 for code 2 PNC check please. AMPR 856.
A double check with the police national computer confirms their suspicions.
When we get an opportunity, we're going to stop this Golf that's travelling in lane 2 on the M6 North. It's activated our in-car AMPR, which would suggest that there's no insurance on it. A PNC check has shown that there is still no insurance listed on the database. And because of that, we're going to stop him and see what the story is. Find out if he's actually got insurance or if he's one of the many travelling without it.
But not all the motorway cops' equipment is high-tech.
Unfortunately, the vehicle we were in didn't have a message board, so we had to use the sign that I'd made earlier. We're going to basically get alongside him, attract his attention and follow me, signer. Right. Yeah, he's got it. No insurance on one car can impact on every single other car that's on the road.
Uninsured drivers cost every motorist an additional £30 on their insurance policy.
If he bumps into you, at the end of the day, you then lose your no claims bonus because you've got nobody to claim against. The reason that we've stopped you is that there's an indication that you might not have any insurance on your vehicle, OK? As you came past us, the AMPR camera, the number plate reading camera that's in the back, alerted us to that. We've done a PNC check and it would appear that there's no insurance listed on it. So if you want to just jump in the back of the police car and we'll just have a quick discussion about it, OK?
The driver's not from Britain, he's French.
Right. Speak English, OK?
Yeah.
Sorry?
I do speak English.
You do? OK.
It's PC Williams's lucky day. He speaks English fluently.
Has my colleague just explained to you why we've stopped you?
Because, well, it appears I don't have any insurance.
Yes.
Well, I'm insured with Insure.com.
When did you take the policy out?
Policy that was maybe 5 months ago, in March or May, I would say.
In May?
In May, yeah.
So what, 3 months ago?
Yeah.
So, how do you pay your insurance? Is it in monthly instalments?
Direct debit monthly, yes.
Right. Have you stopped the direct debits?
Not that I know.
Not that you know.
But PC Williams is going to dig a little deeper.
I'll just have some details off you to start with, and then we'll phone Esure, OK, and just make sure you are covered. Sure. OK. Gut instinct told me that there was something not quite right. And so I followed that instinct and pursued the matter a little bit further. He showed me his insurance certificate, and on the face of it, it looked to be okay.
I take it it's not insurance. If the national computer says that you've got no insurance and they produce an insurance certificate, then you sort of alarm bells start to ring. You start to think, well, has he maybe cancelled the insurance, or the payments haven't been taken out of his bank account, or he's defaulted on the payments.
Hi there, it's a dodgy note. Were you sent that through the post, or did you print it off?
I received it through the post.
Through the post?
Yeah.
Because obviously he got his insurance certificate with the policy number and everything on, we were able to phone the insurance company. I've spoken to a representative of eSure, who say that yes, you did take out the policy, however, they've had numerous problems with payment, of which they've written to you requesting payment. You contacted them on the 18th of May this year.
I contacted them, yes.
You did, you phoned them on the 18th of May this year, and they gave you another 7 days to make the payment. Apparently they've had quite a few problems with collecting your direct debit payment.
Yes.
What we tend to find is increasingly happening is that people will opt to pay on a monthly basis a direct debit. They'll pay the first month or maybe 2 months in order to get the yearly certificate in their hand, and then they'll cancel it.
They've received no payment from you for the May. They received no payment from you for June, so they wrote to you on the 17th of June cancelling the policy.
What I'm going to do now is get a recovery truck out to come and collect your car.
Oh, please don't. I will just phone someone to arrange some...
No, it's a set procedure now. They're going to get your car seized, and you can then go and on payment... Sorry?
And pay £150 or so.
Have you done this before, have you?
It happened to me once, yeah.
Yeah, so you know the score. Is that what your 6 points are for?
Yeah.
No insurance?
Yeah. He'd done it once before, not learnt his lesson, and he'd taken the risk on that occasion to drive without insurance again.
I can't afford it.
Well,
I've got to pay the bill, I've got to pay this in addition.
All due respect, that is not my concern.
But I wasn't aware of this thing.
Sorry?
I wasn't aware of the fact I wasn't insured.
You're obviously in conversation with the insurance company, as my colleague has just said, because you knew there was a problem.
He obviously hasn't learned his lesson, though. And people don't learn their lesson. They think they can get away with it. But now we have no option but to seize vehicles, and we have the powers, the government has given us the powers to seize those vehicles, which hopefully will reduce the number of uninsured drivers on the road.
"100 miles northeast on the M180 near Scunthorpe, PC's Steve Keeble and Darren Woodford are on their way to a major incident.
We got a report of an accident involving a foreign heavy goods vehicle, a motorcyclist and a car.
At the moment, the information we're getting is a motorcyclist face down and not moving. We'll obviously assess it when we get there and decide on the severity and how far we need to go with it.
Usually when there's a heavy goods vehicle and a motorcyclist involved, then you're looking at serious injuries.
Accidents involving drivers from abroad have increased by nearly 50% in the last 5 years. This accident occurred as the lorry driver was leaving the motorway.
There seems to be a lot of foreign lorry drivers now employed by English haulage companies, and most of them are competent drivers. They're professional drivers. The problem is when somebody makes an innocent mistake, it can have serious consequences for other people if you're driving a large heavy goods vehicle.
2 fire trucks and an ambulance have already arrived.
When we got on scene, I could see that the heavy goods vehicle had driven past the scene.
The lorry involved is one of the largest allowed on UK roads. PC Keeble's job is to work out if the lorry driver is the one at fault.
I've told the gentleman who's at the back of his wagon now to go back to his vehicle and just remain there.
The first responder, paramedic, he gave us a quick update as to what he believed had happened.
According to the lady in the silver accent, it's actually been on the
It's on this side again.
Yeah. She's pulled over to the near side as much as she can to avoid it.
Yeah.
And the chap on the motorbike, he's gone obviously into the rear of her.
The collision turns out to be between the car and the motorbike.
She'd come round the bend, she'd seen the lorry coming towards her on the wrong side of the road, so she'd braked for her own safety and moved over to the verge as near as she could get, closed her eyes, and the lorry managed to pass her by.
The biker has borne the brunt of the crash.
He'd come off his bike and he'd possibly hit the curb, and they were concerned for his injuries and they were bringing spinal boards out.
The guy's in a lot of pain. He's scoring 10 out of 10 on pain and is currently being morphined.
It's quite serious at the moment. The chap's got an unstable fracture of his C-spine. So obviously the paramedics are a bit concerned about him.
Because of his injuries, an air ambulance has been called to transport him to hospital. But finding a safe landing spot near the motorway is proving tricky.
Basically, we need to get the air ambulance landed, but unfortunately, because of the power lines, we need to clear an area, but because of the congestion, we need to move the ambulance to try and get some of the heavies out of the way.
Time is running out. The biker urgently needs specialist attention.
He's possibly got a broken back.
And now the car driver is causing concern.
Initially, she seemed to be okay, but then she developed some pain in her back, and I think shock suddenly set in with her, and she partially collapsed.
The casualties are not the only problem for the cops.
At that time, we were looking at serious injury, but on the other hand, we've got an arterial route where we're causing a lot of congestion to other road users.
Just north of Birmingham, the French driver, stopped for having no insurance, is making his excuses to PC's McNamara and Williams.
Just so that you know, I was getting some cuts in order to have something for the baby, which comes in 2 weeks.
Okay.
No, I don't have the money anymore.
Right. Well, with the best will in the world and with all due respect to yourself, you need to get your priorities sorted, don't you? If you can't afford to run the car, okay.
If I can't afford to run a car, then I can't afford to go to work. If I can't afford to go to work, I would be better off on the door anyway.
Okay.
Because if I'm not working, I will make more money. That's the way.
Well, if I was to tell you that you may well now be looking at being disqualified from driving.
Yeah, I know that.
You know that?
Because, well, you told me 6 points for the last one. If this is 6 points again, then I can't go to work anymore. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Right, Olivier, is there anything I've explained to you that you don't understand?
Why I should stay in this country?
Well, that's a matter for yourself. What you need to do is get what you need out of the car and then give your mate a ring to come and pick you up. Do you know where you are?
I don't have a mate around here.
Sorry?
I don't have a mate with a car around here.
Well, that's okay. Because just down the road here, there's a bus stop that will take you into the city centre.
Wicked.
Where you can get on the bus to Coventry, okay, or you can catch a train back to Coventry.
Right, do you need to get any stuff out of the vehicle?
Well, yeah, sure.
The reason that we didn't feel sorry for him is because legally in this country, you have to have insurance on your car. You cannot take a vehicle on a road in the UK without insurance, whether you're from France or any other country. When you're in this country, you've got to know the laws of the land.
PC Williams wants one final word with the driver.
As the chap was walking off from the car, I wanted to make sure that he knew exactly where to go to get a bus and to continue his journey. But he just ignored me and walked off. Don't walk off when I'm talking to you, OK? I'm trying to be polite to you, OK? The way you get out is you go under the bridge. There's a gate on your left, all right? Press the buzzer and they will let you out, all right? Do not ignore me, OK?
Well, you totally destroyed me. What do you want me to do?
Well, whose fault's that?
It's not mine.
It's not mine.
You do it on purpose, man.
No, how did I know?
Thank you.
Good night. Oh, dear. Oh, it's my fault now. The amazing thing is that we've done some recent checks and it turns out that he was actually appearing in court on the morning of the day we stopped him and he was disqualified from driving for 6 months. But due to the amount of time it takes to get that information onto the computer, we weren't aware of that. So it's a good job we took the car off him anyway.
Back in Lincolnshire, the motorway cops have cleared a landing spot for the air ambulance to take the injured motorcyclist to hospital. But the landing will be tricky.
It's fantastic to see it. The skill they have, he had to negotiate trees, power lines, and he put it down slap bang in the middle of the road that we'd cleared for him.
With a suspected spine fracture, the short trip to the helicopter is the most critical part of the journey.
If you don't stabilise him, then there's a chance if he moves his head or his body or anything, he could actually sever his spinal cord and end up paralysed.
There's like a little gang involved in moving the casualty. They've got him on a spinal board, and I think there's a handle at each corner and 2 or 3 in the middle. And sometimes you see 6, sometimes you see 8 people, and it's quite an art to get him picked up, stable and level, and then transferred down the road and into the helicopter.
The air ambulance can only take 1 passenger, so the car driver will have to go by road.
She'd been initially assessed by the paramedics, and then she took a turn for the worse, and then the paramedics took on board care for her as well.
With the injured safely on their way to hospital, PC Keeble can now concentrate on finding out exactly what happened.
Primarily you're there to investigate an accident, and once you've made sure that you've got all the evidence you've got from that scene, then you'll open the road.
This is a 2-lane carriageway, but vehicles travel opposing one another in each lane. The Polish lorry driver, for some reason, has maybe thought that this is a dual carriageway, and he's actually moved on to the offside of the lane.
We noted where all the vehicles were. There'd been no contact between the heavy goods vehicle and the car. It had just been a rear end between the motorcyclist and the car.
Once again, there's a language problem.
We've had a serious RTC involving a Polish driver that hardly speaks English. We're bringing him through to spin him. Can you organise a Polish interpreter for us while we're en route? We're going to take him through to Scunthorpe and interview him with an interpreter, and it might even be with a view to put him before the courts in the morning if the CPS or whoever makes them decisions decide what we're going to do with him.
The driver may face charges, but it could have been much more serious.
30 yards further, 40 yards further around the bend, the lady might not even have seen the lorry until it was too late. The lorry could easily have gone over the top of the car, crushing or seriously injuring the driver. He could easily have had 2 fatal.
In Cheshire, PC's Paul Cuddy and Carl Lloyd are coming to the end of a long day.
I was just about to finish my shift and go on holiday, and Carl was taking me to drop me off, and we joined the motorway from the services, and we saw 4 girls stood near a car, and I thought, just my luck.
Oh dear.
Motorway cops are not usually allowed to help fix problem motors, but this is an exception.
It's dangerous to stop on the hard shoulder anyway, but where these young ladies had stopped was even more dangerous because of the trucks that were exiting from the services onto the motorway itself.
Where are you off to then? Blackpool! My birthday weekend!
Go on and do the nuts on that front wheel. Yeah, I'll show you how to do it.
At least I get some nuts this weekend!
Oh.
With the best will in the world, I don't think between the 4 girls they could have changed the tyre.
I'm Jenny, this is Karen, this is Kate. That's Tracy.
The girls had started to get the luggage out of the boot to get to the spare tyre, and the luggage was everywhere, and they were standing on the side, on the hard shoulder, which is a dangerous place.
If you just stay on the side, mate, because this is why we wear big yellow coats.
And the last thing we want is somebody parked on the hard shoulder and getting hit by another vehicle.
The girls and their car are on the move again.
We decided to move the car onto the side, and Carl got in the girls' car to drive it round, and there was obviously no room then for one of the passengers, so she ended up coming in the police vehicle with me, which I think was a bit novel to her.
It's lucky Tracy spotted that. Well, she felt the tyre when she was driving, luckily.
What is it, just knocking, is it?
It's got a massive bump at the edge, in the inner edge.
How's she noticed that, just when she's driving?
Yeah, just when we pulled out of the service station just then.
Right.
Because if that had burst, then you probably would have crashed when you were.
Well, you might have done, yeah. Yeah. It's not something you carry on with, is it?
That sort of thing, travelling at 70 miles an hour, could cause a major blowout. That would drag you off to the near side, and no matter how good a driver you were, you're in the lap of the gods.
But a detailed examination reveals the girls' problems aren't over.
We found out that the spare wheel was flat, the tyre was bald, and there was no jack, and there was no handle to wind the jack up, or even the spanner to undo the nuts.
It's an expensive breakdown.
It'll cost you for the quick service, won't it? But it's just one of those things.
I know, no drama.
Do you know what I mean?
Just another story to tell the grandkids, eh?
They were not from the area and they didn't really know what they were going to do in relation to getting the car repaired, so we just gave them a bit of advice really and a little bit of help to get them on the way.
Alright, look forward to speaking to you again. Alright, bye, save us. Right, cool. Got to wait, he's going to call back about 10-15 minutes.
Right.
With the quote and...
OK, you go and park on the car park down there, take it nice and easy.
Yeah.
Limp off.
And then just hang on there.
He's a lifesaver. We will make it to Blackpool. It could have exploded and we could have all died. If it weren't for these lot. Oh yeah, thank you ever so much. Thank you. We'll always remember you in our dreams.
Thank you.
You probably remember Paul more than me because he's younger and better looking. At least they had the sense to stop on the hard shoulder rather than try and make it to Blackpool. So, we'll go and drop Paul off at Burton Woods so he can go on his holidays.
That's part of the job where I have to give a little, and it's to help other people, and that's what I joined the job for, to help other people.
The driver of the stolen car was found guilty of taking a vehicle without consent and given a community order. The passenger was released without charge. The driver who did a runner after he crashed his car was not prosecuted because of insufficient evidence. The Chinese driver, who stopped to relieve himself on the hard shoulder, was found guilty of driving without a licence. He received 3 points and was fined £75. Both he and his passenger were in the country illegally and are now awaiting deportation. The speeding doctor was not disqualified, but he received 6 points on his licence and was fined £600. The disqualified French driver with no insurance received a further 7 points on his licence and was fined £250. The Polish lorry driver involved in the accident with the motorcycle and the car was charged with driving without due care and attention. Police believe he's now in Poland and unlikely to return to the UK. And the 4 girls were sent on their way to Blackpool with a ticking off from the cops.